So what is up, YouTube? Jason here, and today I am in a field behind a truck stop, right? But I will be discussing the brothers Karamazov. Last time I touched on Dmitri. This time we're talking about Alyosha and how he embodies love and his relationship with love and faith, I guess, or, how faith may be viewed as a synonym or a parallel to love and vice versa. Because of course Dmitri, he has a different relationship with love, whereas Alyosha uses love. He affirms people, and he has a type of unconditional love and for people, for total strangers. He's very contemplative about their nature, and he often thinks of people well before ever meeting them, and this is quite a beautiful quality to have, and a necessary one for a character meant to embody love and to embody faith. But Dmitri, of course, is in love with Grushenka, but is this love, or is this a total obsession, a total infatuation, a perversion of love? Because of course Dmitri, he planned on killing himself after handing Grushenka over to Kalganov, or however you say his name, the officer that Grushenka goes to McGrow to meet. And by doing so, this is an incredibly selfish act, ending one's life over another human being. This is an incredibly selfish act because Grushenka now must live with that guilt forever. He's interweaving his fate with hers in a totally selfish and way that is meant to inflict internal this grief and guilt, right? For indefinitely, I guess, for the rest of her life. There's no way she would ever be able to forget that type of tragedy, and which she must believe or wonder how much of this she caused and precipitated. And she's no saint herself, of course not, right? If you're really playing this game of spite and injecting jealousy into the heart of man, one guy, eventually you're going to come across a guy who feels as though he has nothing more to live for. Someone, such as Dmitri. His father he's in a love triangle with his father, Fyodor, and Fyodor really shows him no love. So it's hard to say. Dmitri may not understand what love really is. And of course, when you really love someone, you have to know when to let them go, and allow them to, regardless of whoever's outgrown the relationship or why it failed, you have to let them move on, And that's real love. That is real love, not what Dmitri is claiming love is, So anyway, it's not about Dmitri so much as Alyosha. I'm using Dmitri to illustrate the contrast between the two characters, and to compare the two characters. Alyosha, of course, he went into the monastery. He studied under Father Zosima, and he went into the monastery after visiting his mother's grave, and he asks his father permission to go into the monastery, and he learns to love, and he learns about himself within the monastery. And Father Zosima tells him to go out into the world. That is where his services are needed. And it seems every character, he comes across in this narcissistic universe where everyone is trying to push their own personal agenda or point of view onto others to ensure that their desires are met. Alyosha shuts up and he listens. He doesn't cast judgment, but he listens. And he serves as a mirror. He reflects a portrait of personality, of character, right? A rendering of character. And in doing so, people, in a well-articulated version at that, or a well-illustrated version at that, and in doing so, people are able to recognize their flaws in him. And he possesses this quality which makes people want to do better. Okay, and that is a very important quality to have. I had different my favorite teachers throughout my lifetime, and you think of, I'm somebody who wants to teach and got into English because I thought I would want to teach one day, right? And to educate people and students, whatnot, and to make a difference on students' lives. I had teachers, all the great teachers I had possessed this quality. They saw something in me that others didn't see. And even if that potential hadn't been met yet, or I wasn't working to my fullest potential, they saw something much greater in me that I failed to even recognize, or that I hadn't recognized yet. And that's what Alyosha does for different characters. Now, there is a reason in The Grand Inquisitor that Ivan is talking to Alyosha, and Alyosha is the one listening, and obviously Ivan is the intellectual brother who is able to craft these very sound, strong arguments that allude to human suffering and how there really is no reason for it. And in The Grand Inquisitor, Christ comes back to Spain, and they throw him in prison, right? And this clergyman, tells Christ all the ways he went wrong by not accepting Satan's proposal, because it offered man doesn't actually want freedom, but he needs something to follow, right? And after Christ died, of course, it was like the church had to step in and pick up where Christ had fallen short. But so after all this argument, and perhaps there really is no rebuttal that is going to make sense. They're talking in this theoretical suffering, this abstract notion of suffering, which casts it in a light that is always bad and just unnecessary. How can you make sense of a mother losing a child at birth? How can you make sense of a child falling ill with cancer, who has no even reference to good and evil and is totally innocent? How can you make sense of animals without human level consciousness, being crushed by whatever, a boulder rolling down a hill, or I don't know, or a deer breaks its leg in the woods and is left to suffer for days until it starves to death, or something comes along and feasts on its flesh, and picks it apart, coyotes, whatever, right? How can you justify this? But of course, this is all an abstract argument, not in the sense that suffering doesn't exist, because of course it does. But we're looking at it away from just our own individual lives. We're trying to account for the suffering of all of Earth. And what Christ does at the end of the Grand Inquisitor, there is no answer but to show love. And so, of course, Christ kisses the Grand Inquisitor and then walks away. And Alyosha, the saint, the allegorical saint in the novel, this is what he is constantly doing in a way, right? He, through his actions, through his listening and speaking, and not casting judgment, but seeing and speaking when the time is right, and being selfless and being a man of his word and trying to live by the absolute truth that is love, and the way love orients him towards the truth, and vice versa, I guess, right? So, sorry, I sort of lost my place. But, yeah, so, like, Alyosha, what I wanted to discuss specifically about Alyosha this time around was, bear with me, is I just got done reading the chapter Precosity, right? And in precocity means mature for one's age. So in Precosity, there is a young boy named Kolya. And Kolya is, like I say, as the chapter name alludes to, he is mature for his age. He is smart, he is intelligent, he's brave, or so it seems, he's courageous. But he's also vain, and he has conceit. And he seems sort of, and he's opposed to any signs or showing of sentimentality, of emotion, right? He gets angry at his mother for doing so. And he seems to want to appear superior. He's constantly concerned with, proving his superiority. But the boys, all his peers respect him. He's like revered amongst his peers. And so we get a glimpse into his life. But then he has a friend, Alyosha, right? But, or to back up, Kolya gets involved in some mischief, though. He's without a father figure, or his father is not in his life at this time. And, he reads these books. He reads his father's old books, Kolya does. And he pulls various literary references, and not even necessarily because he fully understands them or has fully contemplated their arguments and come to his own conclusions about certain topics. But it's more at a vain attempt of appearing smart, appearing more mature for his age. So without a father, of course, one is forced to mature faster than others, right? He is the man of the house. So he has been forced by his circumstances to mature quicker. Anyway, so then he has this friend, this little boy, Alyosha, who has fallen grievously ill, following, after the town, or these other little boys make fun of his father. His father was made a laughingstock because Dmitri pulled his beard and called him Wisp of Toe or something like that. And so all these little boys make fun of Alyosha and his father, and he falls grievously ill. Whether the two are correlated, I mean, in some sense, you would imagine so. It seems as though, like, he's fallen ill from embarrassment, I guess from secondhand embarrassment and from guilt. A combination of guilt and embarrassment seems, to have given rise to this illness, this like fatal illness that he must, that's upon him, that's fallen upon him. So Alyosha, because Alyosha also stabs Kolya, this boy that he respects so much, in the leg with a penknife, and I forget what that dispute was all about, but so he stabbed Kolya with a penknife, but he immediately felt this guilt, it seemed, and he also is feeling this guilt about potentially killing his dog, right? Because Smerdyakov told Alyosha, wrap a pin up in some bread and feed it to your dog. Dogs tend to swallow food whole, and just see what happens. And the dog squealed, of course, winced and ran away. So he's dealing with guilt and embarrassment, and Alyosha falls ill, like I said multiple times so far. I keep repeating myself. But so then he wants nothing more than for Kolya to visit him. Alyosha wants nothing more than to see his dog, and Alyosha wants nothing more than to see his dog and for Kolya to visit him. His father has even went out, the captain, as they refer to him, I think, has went out and bought like this pure breed dog, I don't remember, Mistiff, or I don't remember the name, right, of this dog, but like of the breed. But it's a nice dog, right, or a pedigreed dog, whatever. And this isn't what he wants. He wants his old dog back, his shaggy-looking dog with a missing ear. And around this time, we learn that Kolya has a similar dog that looks exactly the same, right? And Kolya he's not going to visit, he's going to visit, but he's going to do it on his own time, right? So he's very much stubborn in that regard. And he keeps people waiting, and he manufactures this suspense of the house instead of recognizing the situation and seeing that his friend is ill and he should just go visit him out of compassion. But instead, Kolya takes this time to train this dog that seems to actually be Alyosha's dog. So he steals his dog, essentially. And regardless of whether Alyosha harmed it or not, he has now fallen ill, and he wants nothing more than to see Kolya and his dog. So eventually, Alyosha, in the meantime, is sending Kolya's friend Smirnov or something like that to say to Kolya, come and visit Alyosha. Come and visit Alyosha. And eventually Kolya agrees to come. On the way over, he's insulting peasants. He's constantly making people bend over so he may step upon them to elevate himself, right? But he has this desire, Kolya does, to meet Alyosha. And he has great respect for Alyosha, Kolya does. And as I mentioned, he's heading down a dangerous path. He's getting into mischief. He laid on a train. He bet some older boys when him and his mother traveled out of town that he would lay on these train tracks and allow a train to go, rolling over top of him, right, thundering over top of him. And he loses consciousness during these series of events, but he regains consciousness right after the train has passed him. And he doesn't admit this, though. He just gets up and walks away, and I don't even think says a word, or maybe he does, but, he's just, he's like, he's a fake, it's a farce. It's all a farce. Just to appear bigger and badder than he really is. And like I said, he's sort of forced into this in a way. Alyosha tells him he's been distorted, right? He's a good kid, but he's been distorted. And this distortion by his environment and his own insecurities is leading him down this dangerous path, right? And like I said, Alyosha can see. That's why I referred to him as a mirror of character. So Kolya shows up, and everyone is up on their feet, and it's almost as if the prince has arrived, the little prince has arrived, and Kolya is praised for this. And then eventually he plays his trick. He plays this cheap trick of having the dog lay dead out in the hallway and then whistling to it, and having the dog, which he's renamed in the meantime, and he constantly refers to it as the name he's named it. So he's, like I said, he essentially stole this dog, right? So it could play tricks, and it could, he can just elevate his ego, right, through the relaying of these tricks in front of this crowd, that he has manufactured this suspense by keeping people waiting for him. So then he reveals, no, this actually is your dog, and he has it play all these tricks. And then he presents Alyosha with a little bronze cannon that he tried to pawn off on these kids he was watching earlier to get them to not cry while he went out. And he says, no, you can have the cannon. So these are all cheap attempts, to receive praise. And he gets to pat himself on the back afterward. Also, he can pat himself on the back and think about how good of a man he is, right? And how ahead of his time he is, and how respected he is. But anyway, so then, all the meanwhile, right? And Alyosha, he gets some life back, and he's still seriously sick, but he gets some life back, and he sits up in bed, and he's conversing with Kolya and his father, and they're all on the brink of tears. And it seems like a happy moment, but the only person who is keeping quiet during all of this is Alyosha, because Alyosha recognizes this cheap trick that Kolya is playing. And so after all this, finally a doctor from Moscow shows up to evaluate Alyosha. And so while he's evaluating Alyosha and Kolya have a conversation. And this conversation, when I read it for the first time, it made me emotional. And I think I wanted to try to share it with you, or at least a brief portion of it, if I may. So just bear with me. I mean, if you're still watching, I think you're sort of in for the duration anyway, right? I feel like I keep going back too far. Where are we? Yeah, here we are. Okay, so this is at the ending of the chapter Precosity, right? And this is a conversation between Alyosha and Kolya. And so this is Kolya talking. I wasn't showing off out of vanity, though I really don't know why. Because I was so pleased. Yes, I believe it was because I was so pleased, though it's disgraceful for anyone to talk like that because they are pleased. I know that. But I am convinced now that you don't despise me. It was all my imagination. Oh, Karamazov, I am so unhappy. I sometimes think all sorts of things, that everyone is laughing at me, the whole world, and then I want to overturn the whole order of things. And you worry everyone, smiled Alyosha. Yes, I worry everyone, especially my mother, Karamazov. Especially my mother. Karamazov, tell me, am I being very ridiculous now? Don't think about that. Don't think of it at all, cried Alyosha. And what does ridiculous mean? Isn't everyone constantly being or seeming ridiculous? Besides, nearly all clever people are afraid of being ridiculous, and that makes them unhappy. I am surprised that you should feel ridiculous so early, though nowadays little children have begun to suffer from it. It's almost a sort of insanity. The devil has taken form of that vanity, added Alyosha, without a trace of the smile that Kolya, staring at him, expected to see. You are like everyone else, said Alyosha in conclusion. That is, like many others, only you must not be like everybody else. That's all. Even if everyone else is like that? Yes, even if everyone else is like that. You be the only one not like that. You really are not like everyone else. You are not ashamed to confess to something bad and ridiculous. And who today will admit so much? No one. People have even ceased to feel the impulse to self-criticism. Don't be like everyone else, even if you are the only one. Good. I was not mistaken in you. You know how to console one. Oh, how I have longed to know you, Karamazov. I've been eager to meet you. Have you thought about me too? You said just now that you thought of me. Yes, I heard of you and thought of you too. And if it's partially vanity that makes you ask, it doesn't matter. Do you know, Karamazov, our talk has been like a declaration of love, said Kolya in a bashful voice. That's not ridiculous, is it? Not at all ridiculous. And if it were, it wouldn't matter, because it's been a good thing, Alyosha smiled. But do you know, Karamazov, you must admit that you are a little ashamed now. I see it by your eyes, Kolya smiled with a sort of sly happiness. Why ashamed? Well, why are you blushing? You make me blush, laughed Alyosha, and he really did blush. Oh, well, I am a little goodness knows why. I don't know, he muttered, embarrassed. How I love you and admire you at this moment, just because you are ashamed, because you are just like me, cried Kolya. His cheeks glowed, his eyes beamed. Something made Alyosha say suddenly. His eyes beamed. You know, Kolya, you will be very unhappy in life, something made Alyosha say suddenly. I know. How do you know? Kolya agreed at once. But you will bless life on the whole, all the same. Yes, you are a prophet. Oh, we will get on together, Karamazov. Do you know, what I like best is that you treat me like an equal. But we are not equals. No, we are not. You are better. But we will be friends, do you know? We will be friends. Do you know, all this last month I've been saying to myself, either we shall be friends at once forever, or we shall be enemies to the grave. In saying that, of course, you loved me. Alyosha laughed. I did. I loved you awfully. I've been loving and dreaming of you. And how did you know all that beforehand? Oh, here's the doctor. What will he tell us? Look at his face. So, I start to get choked up there because Alyosha, this is a complete stranger to him. They have just met. And Alyosha has unconditional love. And despite being viewed as the possibility of being viewed as a mystic and being dismissed as crazy, I mean, if you went up to a stranger and tried to have a conversation and began to oversharing and told someone, a complete stranger, you love them, how many people would dismiss you and view you as a madman? Or how many people would accept unconditional love from a complete stranger? But of course, that's what Alyosha does. That's what Alyosha is. He's an embodiment of the best aspects, I guess, of Christ and the best aspects of humanity. unconditional love is his guide, and he listens and he is attentive, and he contemplates on people suffering in his free time. I mean, these are astounding qualities, right? To have. And he tells Kolya at the end, Kolya says this has been a declaration of love, because he feels as though Alyosha sees him. He sees the good and the bad, and he chooses to love him despite of his mischief and despite of his veering off the righteous path, right? And he feels as though he has been seen and heard. And potentially, as a result, he may be able to amend and heal his character. So that is why he calls this a declaration of love. And, Alyosha, he what he does is he gets a whiff of people's character, and then he may be able to then predict how their character is going to impact their future, not only their future, but the future of others around them, the people in their vicinity, the people in their lives. And he says, Kolya, you are going to be unhappy, but you will have a great impact on the world all the same. And I believe this is because Kolya is incredibly strong. While he is sensitive, as Alyosha points out, he is incredibly brave and incredibly strong. And people are going to draw strength from him. And he is going to be a well of strength for people to draw from. And he is going to have to weather having to put up with these people's problems, I believe. And it's going to wear on him. And he's going to have to learn to accept himself as well. And he's going to have to learn to risk being ridiculous for the reward of being, understood by those willing to listen. And so he may be unhappy, but if he's willing to embark on this journey, he's going to have a great impact on the world. I mean, he's a natural leader. So, of course, a leader is going to have to bear the brunt of the suffering that affects the group. But many people are going to draw strength from that leader, and their lives will be hopefully affected in a positive way as a result. And I think Alyosha is just astounding. I think he is a great contrast to Dmitri. We see Dostoyevsky interweave the madman, an allegorical version of the madman in Dmitri, and then you have you have Alyosha, who represents the saint. And I was waiting for the resolution that Alyosha offered, and he is not failing in his delivery. As I said, he listens to people, and he doesn't cast judgment, but he merely reflects to them their good and their bad. And people, once they have seen this, right, and once they have experienced the unconditional love that he shines their way, they really, it's like truth revealing itself to you and glaring at you in the face, and it is then up to them to decide what they do with this information about themselves. There's really no more excuses to continue to behave in the way that they do, right? And of course, Alyosha has been willing to take on all this suffering of others, right? since he listens so much and he contemplates so much on the suffering of others, he of course takes some of their suffering upon himself. So we must wonder about Alyosha's happiness. But I don't think Alyosha is concerned with being happy all the time. He is concerned with providing unconditional love for those who need it most. And I think that's what Father Zosima is trying to teach him, to be for people. He recognizes this in Alyosha. This is why Alyosha sees, when Father Zosima begins to decay early on, and there's all these whispers that this is totally unnatural, and this means this calls into question all of his life's work and whether he was actually a good man or not, and whether he was Christ-like or not. But of course, Alyosha doesn't fall into these temptations. But he's only human at the same time. But yeah, that's sort of just been my overview of Alyosha so far. More of the brothers Karamazov to come. I'm going to keep reading. I think where I've left off, I'm book 11, Ivan at Grushenka. So we, after seeing love, unconditional love and faith be shown, now we get a taste of cynicism, and the atheist gets to have a voice next. So yeah, maybe Ivan will be coming soon, and then perhaps Smerdyakov after that. But like I say, my itinerary, I sort of follow my own rules when going about undergoing the making of these videos. And I am a very chaotic, sporadic person by nature. I could afford to atone for some of that and look at how it affects people. Maybe I could learn a thing or two from Alyosha myself, right? But it's a beautiful day out, so I've just been soaking up some sun, reading a little bit of the brothers Karamazov, and ruminating. But the nice thing about these videos is it gives my ruminating thoughts an outlet to propagate, right? And to perhaps enter the minds of others. And I think that's a beautiful thing. So I'm going to keep with the making of these videos and just keep on the lookout to see what I do next, all right? And if you have any comments, leave them below. Thank you.